All right, and we're back. Now we're moving on to D. As for the total distance when I got home, so I'm looking again at my total distance, and so I have to include not straight from TSCS to home, but actually think about it, the whole distance that I traveled. All right, so I'm on D. And I had multiple trips here. So I went from here to Kroger. So I had TSCS to Kroger. And we already calculated that. That was 2.6 miles. And then I had Kroger here to the hospital here. So Kroger back to the hospital was 1.1. And then I had from the hospital to home. And that was 1.1 plus 0.9 equals 2.0. And so my total distance that I traveled was 2.6 plus 1.1 plus 2.0. So I'll say total equals 2.6 plus 1.1 plus 2.0. And so this day I traveled 2.6, 4.6, 5.7. 5.7 miles. Not too bad for an afternoon. And remember, this is because we're not looking at the displacement. So the distance that I traveled is actually a lot longer than the total displacement. If I was just looking for the displacement, it would be from straight from my home. I'm sorry, from Soulsville to my home. Make sure you can see that. From Soulsville to my home. But that's not what I'm doing. I am saying the whole distance that I traveled. So going up and down and back and forth. All right, now moving on to question E. It said, at what speed in miles per hour was the student walking 20 minutes after he left school? And I think that was on this first trip in y'all's problem, so I'll do one on that. And so instead of doing 20 minutes, I'm going to say at 10 minutes. So I'm looking right here. So 10 minutes. Now, during 10 minutes, I was on my trip from Soulsville to the hospital. Let me pause while these students come in and out. All right. So when I'm talking about the speed, I need, as you guys saw in the video that you watched yesterday, I need to be looking at the slope of this line. And so the slope of my line is the rise over the run. Hold on just a second. Sorry for that interruption, y'all. Anyway, so my speed is going to be the slope of this line. But I would just tend to look at dividing, because speed, remember, is going to be my displacement or my distance over my time for during this section. So anytime at point, where did I say? At this 10 minutes, my speed is going to be the same because that is the same slope. And so I'm just going to say this was what 2.6 miles. So my speed is my displacement over my time. And then this was 2.6 miles versus, over, in my case, 15 minutes. And so I put that into a calculator. to 2.6 divided by 15, and that equals 0.17. I'm going to break this up into two lines. Miles per minute, but it asked me for the speed in miles per hour, so I have to do a quick conversion. So I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 mile. So I say 0.17 times 60. And that gives me 10.39 miles over hours, which is also known as mph. But you don't really have to know that part. Okay, so that's how I get my speed here. Moving on to section F. So it says, if home is due south of school, what is the velocity of the student at t equals 50 minutes? At t equals 50 minutes. So let's see here. I'm going to pause for a second to see the best place on my graph so that it matches the place on your graph. All right, it looks like 50 minutes was on this trip from, for me, it'll be from Kroger to the hospital, which is actually, in your case, it was from the library to the coffee cafe, but either way, it's the same point on the journey. And so I am going to do the speed, or the velocity rather. Where did it go? Doing the velocity in miles per hour. Now the difference between speed and velocity, of course, and if you guys saw this in the video, is that velocity has to have a direction. And I was given south as my direction. All right, so remember I need the slope of the line. It's the slope of this line right here. And so I know it took me 10 minutes to get there, and that total distance was 1.1 miles. And so my velocity is 1.1 miles over 10 minutes. Shouldn't need to use a calculator for that, but I did anyway. 0.11 miles per minute, and it asked me for the answer in miles per hour. So again, do the same conversion. Times 60. And so I was going 6.6 miles per hour during this time. But it asked me for the velocity, so I have to give a direction. And so I'm going to say 6.6 miles per hour south. And then my last one is an interesting question. It says, what's the student's speed at 1 hour? And in your example, this was when the student reached the coffee shop. In my example, that would be when I reached the hospital. So that is at this point right here. Now, you can look at this in two ways. I think that's right for y'all. Let's see. 35 minutes to get to the library, then 10 minutes, that's 45 minutes. They walk down the street on the same street in 15 minutes. So he gets to the coffee shop right at 1 hour. And at 1 hour, I'm at this point, which means my speed is either the same speed that I was just walking or 0, because I've gotten to the coffee shop. I'm going to choose to say that it's 0 because I have arrived.